I just saw a TikTok video from a user that they were talking about building their own web application and having a hard time scaling it being just a single engineer. And being a single web developer, engineer, it's kind of hard to focus on big picture and scaling a web app. But if you're interested in working for AWS or getting into like bigger FANG type companies, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, you should really know system design and how to scale your web application. Knowing what a 3-tier web app is and how that functions is really critical. So back in 2015 at re:Invent, there was a talk called Scaling Up to Your First 10 Million Users. And it's been iterated over since the last few years, and they keep updating it year to year because it's a really good talk. So the Startups blog made a multi-part blog about it, and here's part 1. And they talk about scaling and basically starting with your first base of users. Now I'm not going to go into detail much here, but I'm just going to show each part. So here's part 2, part 3, part 4, and then part 5 ends up just linking to the Medium article that's written by the same author. So here they talk about, the 3-tier web app. It's cut off at the top, my apologies. But then the next step is the 1,000 users, where you put your instance in multiple AZs, you add an elastic load balancer, and then you end up with something like this. Then your next 10,000, you just add more instances in different AZs, and then you use read replicas for your RDS. And then it starts looking more like this. Then you go to your next 100,000 users, you start putting static items in S3 for hosting, and then you put a CDN in front of the elastic load balancer for dynamic content. And then you can use DynamoDB to host your sessions and switch session management to DynamoDB. And then maybe consider, using Elasticache. And then it starts looking more like this. Then your 500,000, you break the application up into independent services like microservices and make it SOA. And then you connect SQS for queuing. So you treat the services separately and scale them independently. Offers you more flexibility and greater understanding of each component. So then you start using things like SNS, SES, turn on instance auto scaling, start doing sharding, and move functionality to NoSQL. And then the 10 million users, you start doing multi-AZ and maybe even multi-region. For example, maybe your users are in the US, but then maybe they're in Europe as well. It's a really good article, blog series, video. There's kind of a lot, but it's really good at detailing from 0 to 100, 10 million users, which is really cool because you don't get to see a lot of that as like a single dev engineer. You only see that at like big FANG companies like Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Amazon, and Google, or the big web apps out there. The next thing I want to talk about is the system design primer, and this GitHub is epic. If you haven't seen the system design primer, I would strongly recommend looking at it. It talks about system design topics, latency, availability, the CAP theorem, which you should know, the consistency patterns, application patterns, domain name systems, CDNs, load balancing, different layers of load balancing, application layer, the database, types of databases, different types of caching, asynchronization, communication, security, and then appendix. But the best part of this is reading through the design topics, but also all these different company engineering blogs. All big companies like Netflix, Facebook, and Google have blogs from the engineering teams of challenges and things that they faced in such big architectures and design systems. And then real world architectures as well. And basically, questions on, okay, how would you design Pastebin? Design Twitter. How would you do Mint.com? All these different types of things like Amazon sales ranking category feature. Design a system that scales to millions of users on AWS. I have a lot of this posted in my Discord channel, so I would recommend definitely checking it out and hit me up if you have any questions. I'm still new to system design. I don't do much web application development, but I do a lot of architecting in cloud, so I can know how to build the blocks and put them together. But yeah, would love to hear your opinion on this.